This YouTuber makes me question my existence. BDA Law is a great example of how to ignore everything I think is correct and be successful anyway. Because there is more than one path to success on YouTube, and BDA Law stands in such strong contrast to what I do that he is very much worth studying. Now, just to begin with a little candid thing, every Monday is the day that I choose new topics for the week. And as part of that, I visit all of the other One Piece channels and see what they're up to, just to make sure that I'm not covering the exact same idea that someone else has already done. And BDA is usually one of the first I check out. He's what I would refer to as a hot topic channel. The primary type of videos that he makes are chapter reviews and discussions and information based on the events that occurred in said chapters. Which, well, to bring you up to speed, if you're not familiar with One Piece, it's a series that is published weekly in a magazine called Weekly Shonen Jump. So every week there's a particularly hype day for One Piece, which is when the new chapter gets released. And BDA Law takes this concept and runs with it like an Olympic athlete to the extreme. His chapter reviews absolutely go off, regularly breaching 200,000 views, which is not something that I think anyone else currently gets for chapter reviews except for maybe me and Anime Uproar if he gets the clickbait right. There might be some others, I don't know, it doesn't matter. But to understand why BDA Law's reviews hit particularly hard, there's a bit more to know about this whole One Piece thing. So technically the chapters are released on Sundays in the US, however, leaked scans, naughty scans, do emerge several days earlier on Thursdays, I think. It happens on Friday for me, so it's gotta be Thursday for them, yeah? And within this niche, if you do review the chapters, that gives you a choice to make. Either you review the early scans or you wait for the official release. Now, I do the latter for reasons I might get into in another video. There's a deep discussion about legal and moral questions, but for the purpose of this video, it doesn't matter because we're just studying the phenomenon. BDA Law reviews the scans, which is quite important because that gives him a first mover's advantage. His videos appear very early and they capture the market before the slower people like me get into it and compete. And whatever your feelings on scans are, the fact is that this is an objective advantage. BDA Law capitalizes on the initial hype of the chapter, and you can see that reflected very, very well in his view numbers. Now, there are of course other elements to this like his titles and thumbnails, which I will break down shortly because they are big thing. But first of all, in terms of his content, he doesn't stop there. It's kind of like riding a hype wave. BDA Law has the initial chapter review and then usually does a discussion based on that chapter. And then sometimes even a sneaky third video. A video that might be like a collaboration with another YouTuber also discussing the chapter. For example, when chapter 1033 came out, BDA Law had a whole series of videos on that. There was the initial review, there was a discussion about Zoro, and a breakdown of 1033 with Ohara. Like, if chapter 1033 was a cow, it would have no milk left by this point because 3 videos is a lot. It's a lot of pints of YouTube milk. But it works, because they get absurd views due to being hot topics. There is a definite downside to the strategy though, which is that these videos, and look, I guess I'll just blatantly say it, they lose value very quickly. Think about it like watching the news. You see a story covered one night, and then you might have a follow-up the next night, but by night 3, the news cycle has moved on, and whatever we were talking about a couple of days ago just becomes irrelevant. And the big risk with this hot topic nature is that take the series of chapter 1033 videos. As soon as there is a chapter 1034, those aren't news anymore. They're more like olds. And to get into why this can be problematic, here is a fun fact. More than half of my YouTube views, and therefore income, emerges directly from old videos on my channel library. Videos that were designed to be evergreen, which means always relevant no matter what changes happen in the story. You know, videos that I may have made 2 years ago that you can still watch today because they are still evergreen and relevant. And sure, they're not as exciting in the moment as these hot topics, but over time they grow into this gargantuan video forest. And in any given week, if I post 4 videos, I'm only going to use one of them on the new chapter, whereas the other 3 will be designed to be evergreen. Whereas BDA Law has the opposite kind of strategy. It's like 2 to 3 videos on the current chapter, and then 1 to be evergreen. And statistically, you can see the results of that in our views. Social Blade says that he gets about half as many monthly views as I do, which you would never be able to tell just by looking at our channels in isolation. Because he posts about as many videos as I do, and they get a similar amount of views. Sometimes his chapter reviews even get more than mine. So BDA Law is seriously putting in the work at the front end, but unfortunately, those videos rapidly lose value in the long run. In fact, even in the short run, really, because almost no one wants to watch old news. Is this a problem overall? I mean, in my opinion, it's not ideal. But then again, you never really hear anyone complaining that the news isn't rewatchable. It's just a different style of channel. BDA Law is like the reporter on the ground covering the breaking news, whereas I'm more like the guy making a TV show on the same network that gets to air in syndication for like the remainder of time. I definitely want to give BDA a lot more credit though, because he does experiment a surprising amount. He definitely does go for a consistent amount of those evergreen videos, just not quite in proportion. And he can also make some very unexpected stuff like a full recap / analysis analysis of the Sanji vs Queen fight, and also one video he did very recently that was incredibly successful, which was the top 30 strongest characters in the series. That one aside, by and large, these experimental videos don't generally reach anywhere near the peaks of the chapter content, but he's right to keep branching out and continue experimenting because one cannot live on chapter reviews alone. Like if you're an anime YouTuber watching this and all you do is review chapters or episodes, here's a hard but necessary truth. You're just building an empty library. You gotta think a bit more long term. Now, absolutely none of what BDA Law does works without what I would describe as his trademark feature, which are his thumbnails. I always know a BDA Law thumbnail when I see it. He has a very distinct style, which I describe as epic mess. Because legit, his thumbnails go against like everything I believe in. I like simplicity. I enjoy boiling thumbnails down to maybe 3 elements, including text, and sometimes including the title as one of those elements. Now, BDA Law tends to go down the exact opposite route, and usually crams thumbnails with characters often doing epic, action-y things and setting an atmosphere. Take this one, for example, which features Luffy, Sanji, and Zoro standing over the remains of Marineford. Without a single piece of text, there is a very powerful feeling being conjured here. Like, this video is epic, it's apocalyptic, and I need to get into it now. And we did actually touch on a very important word, which is power. This thumbnail exudes power by having our 3 Straw Hats standing over the remains of the most powerful organization in the series. It's very epic and it promises a story. And much more importantly, the art is clean as crap. Every artwork on this man's channel looks smooth, sharp, and well lit. There's a lot of depth to these images, which again helps with setting an atmosphere. Some of his thumbnails do follow the more Liam style strategy, like this chapter review of just Sanji in the middle with a number in the background. That's a very me thing to do. And then there are thumbnails which just spit in the face of my entire YouTube manifesto, like this one of Shanks looking at some boats. And I hate it because I think that faces are so important when making thumbnails. By far the most attention-grabbing things in this world to humans are the faces of other humans. But I also love this thumbnail because combined with the title, it very clearly sets an atmosphere of future battle, which is intriguing and epic and hype, and that is why we click it. And to be perfectly honest, studying the thumbnails of creators like BDA Law and O'Hara has made me a lot less fearful of doing stuff like this. It may not look like it in comparison, but these days I go for what I would have previously called riskier images, where I am deliberately trying to set an atmosphere, whereas before I was just very face-centric. Now, with that said, they're not all hits on BDA Law. I think this thumbnail in particular is just a regular old mess, because on screen it looks recognizable enough. Kaido, Shanks, the Devil Fruit, cool. Some dude, who I guess is Vegapunk. But you also need to remember that we don't look at thumbnails like we do it in art gallery, big, up close, and for long amounts of time. To me, a thumbnail needs to be recognizable at about this size, because they're often going to be small on whatever device you're using, and many people may only look at them for less than a second before their eyes dart somewhere else. So these things need to make an impact, and they need to do it fast. With that said, that one thumbnail is a bit of an outlier. Overall, BDA's visual direction tends to work quite well, although, and I want to be clear here, what BDA Law does is effective, but do not do this unless you know what you're doing. These images work because they are very crisp and carefully chosen artworks, being stuck together to produce an intentional atmosphere. If you attempt to do something like this haphazardly, it will be a disaster, like the big disaster. So if you're new to thumbnail making, I highly recommend that you just stay simple, because simple works in all cases, whereas this is a risk and it can go very wrong. But BDA Law is a man who I also think has an unnaturally good pulse on his audience. He comes from the more power scaly side of the One Piece fandom, which is another reason why his thumbnails work so well. Again, they tend to exude power, they promise fights, and all around they appeal very well to what I assume his core audience wants. And there are a lot of people who try to do this in our niche. Take the epic thumbnail route, and generally, they either end up failing or they end up very meh. Like if you're looking for a masterclass in epic thumbnails, this is the guy to study. Now, in miscellaneous news, something interesting BDA Law does is intros in his videos. It's like this beautifully animated Doflamingo figure Haki Clash that ends in his logo. It's a great little animatic, but once again, it's one of those things that I strongly recommend none of you do. As soon as your video starts, you need to be delivering. And the reason for this is because in terms of video retention, there are a lot, and I mean a lot of people, who will click immediately away from a video in the first 5 to 10 seconds if they're not getting what they want. And yeah, that sounds weird and unreasonable, but even the best, most compelling YouTubers will probably lose around 10% of their audience within the first 10 to 20 seconds of a video. They're just gone. And that's with people doing optimal things. And BDA Law's intro is 15 seconds long, which to me feels like an eternity. If I've clicked your video about One Piece something or other, then I want that something or other immediately. I personally get very, very impatient with long intros, and I think that this is a remnant of the old days on AniTube. Back in the day, by which I mean like 5 to 10 years ago, a lot of anime YouTubers had an AMV opening, a collection of clips from various series like your One Pieces, your Narutos, your Bleachers, your Dragon Balls, all stitched together to some sort of moody rock song, and they were awful, all of them, there were no exceptions, but it just became a standard thing, like you weren't an AniTuber without your shitty AMV opening. So if you're considering getting into YouTube, don't do that. A new viewer does not care about your AMV opening, they just want the thing that they clicked for. Now, having gone on that mini rant, BDA Law's opening doesn't seem to hinder him all that much, and I think that's because of pure production value. You know, this isn't some 480p anime fight, it is a smooth, sharp, and well-produced animation. Even then, the truth is it's not ideal. If you really wanted to min-max the YouTube game, then you just need to start delivering from second zero. Oh, and another thing, since this is becoming a bit of a running statement, let's talk about length. BDA Law is a fairly consistent channel, often offering content between the 10 to 15 minute mark, which I feel is pretty perfect, especially for hot topic content because that is your true quick fix. However, he does also mix in longer videos here and there around 30 to 50 minutes, and sometimes even over an hour, but these are rarities, like the odd treat here and there. You know, it's not a constant bounce between one 10-minute video, 1 hour video, one 15-minute, 1 hour and whatever. So BDA Law is very consistent with video length, which helps your audience understand exactly what they're going to get when they're clicking another BDA Law video. And really, this has been a very positive channel review, hasn't it? I've personally learned quite a bit from BDA Law because he very consistently challenges my own ideas. And he shows me that there are some radically different paths one can take which is still ultimately successful, which is incredibly valuable to me because we share the same niche, so there's a nice direct comparison. Now let me know in the comments who, or even if you want someone else, rambled about on this channel, and who knows, I might do it.